This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Cavalry Audio.
Here we are. Welcome back to Death by Southwest, the podcast where each week I share a different grisly murder story unique to the American Southwest, while my sister and co-host tries to piece together the clues and unravel the mystery behind each of these heinous crimes. I'm your host, Margot, and I'm here with my sister and co-host,
Jenna.
And we also have Kat here.
So where do I look? Do I look at you on here?
You look wherever you want.
Okay.
I mean, you could look wherever. You could look over to the side.
Okay.
It's fine. I don't think it matters. So if you guys couldn't guess, we are recording on Zoom. Well, we're in person, but we're recording with Zoom on because that's the easiest way to get video.
We're literally 2.5 feet away.
Yeah, we're like 2 feet away from each other. Yeah. So we're on Zoom, guys, which we don't love, but we also recognize that it's helpful for social media and people sometimes like to see the people they're listening to. So
Faces and reactions.
there you go. So on today's episode, which will be episode 15, we're headed to Bailey, Colorado, a small town that was rocked by the brutal murder of high school student Maggie Long in 2017. We'll attempt to untangle the web of lies and secrets surrounding Maggie's tragic death, while exploring numerous theories that came about as her family and friends desperately tried to understand what really happened that fateful night.
In 2017.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, we haven't had one in Colorado yet. So that's kind of actually why, it's not why I picked this one, but it's one of the reasons why I picked this one.
I already have questions, but I'll wait.
Okay. I can't believe you have questions already.
Oh my God, I have
fine.
so many.
So before we get into this episode and even start doing our sense of place, I just want to let people know that we are recording at my house and it's a rare day of rain in Tucson, which me and Jenna both love.
It's spring rain.
It's spring rain.
Which is common in a lot of other places, but typically in Tucson, maybe in other
Summer
parts,
rain.
it's summer and sometimes winter. Although we don't get, this is our week of spring. Get ready, summer.
Yeah, this week is going to end and then we're in summer. It's just
Totally.
gonna catapult us right into it.
It really is.
Yeah. So we are really enjoying the fact that we have some rain today. So I have my front door open and so there may be some background noise. And I just want to put that out there so people aren't like, what the fuck is that noise in the background? So there's some rain, maybe some wind and some cars driving by because we have the front door open so that we can enjoy this beautiful spring rain while we record.
Some cat, maybe.
Yeah, the cat is, we talked about cat last episode.
I'm going to talk about cat every time.
Okay, cat appreciates that. So that's, just want to let everybody know that. And all right, let's start talking about Bailey, Colorado.
Let's.
I had never heard of Bailey, Colorado. What do you know about Colorado?
I really don't know anything. I've never been there. Maybe I've been to the Four Corners, which I don't actually know if Colorado is part of it.
Yep.
I need to remember what it's called. The town, the city. When I was in high school, you gave me, I'm going to blame this on you. You gave me a fake ID. And it wasn't a fake ID. It was a real ID of someone you met, someone who lived in your apartment complex in college. And I used to have the address and obviously the city/town memorized on the ID. And it was, no, I wanted to say it was like Aurora Springs, but that's so wrong. It'll come to me. I know what it was. It was Englewood with an E, Colorado.
Oh.
So I don't know where that is in comparison to Bailey, but that's I really don't know anything. I know Colorado can be high desert at times. There's mountains, a lot of ski sports, Denver.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, that's it.
That's it. And that's all we need to know about Colorado, guys. No. Okay, well, that's a good start. I have been to visit an old friend in Denver, and I think I did an Outward Bound that started in Colorado, I want to say. I've driven through there. But other than that, I don't know too much about it. And I've never heard of Bailey, Colorado. So this will be new for both of us.
But I imagine you know where Bailey is in comparison to another major Colorado town, city, place?
I do now.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I mean now.
Yeah. So Bailey, Colorado is a small town in Park County with a population of around 8,000 people. It's a mountain community about 45 miles southwest of Denver, located at an elevation of 7,756 feet. And it's located on historic U.S. Route 285, which runs from Denver to Santa Fe, apparently.
Okay.
So Bailey is a town surrounded by the Pike National Forest, which apparently offers residents and visitors access to a wide variety of outdoor recreational activities. It's known for its beautiful fall foliage, and apparently the changing leaves attract a bunch of tourists each year. I mean, I feel like Colorado, has seasons, and so I'd imagine most of Colorado is pretty beautiful in the fall and changing seasons, but I didn't look into why Bailey is known for its fall foliage.
Like more than a different place.
More than other parts of Colorado, but apparently it is.
Well, that's on the lookup list. Number 1.
There you go. The town, I think this is nice. The town has a strong community spirit with several local organizations and volunteer groups working to improve the area and support its residents. Again, did not look deeper into that. But
I didn't even have a question.
Oh, okay, good.
I mean, I can come up with some, but
I'm sure you can. So Bailey was apparently named after a prominent Colorado lawyer and politician named James Bailey, in case you were wondering where the name for the city came from.
I wasn't, but that's one question I don't have to ask.
The famous American outlaw Jesse James is rumored to have hidden gold in the area. If you could describe Jesse James, could you? Like, would you?
Who I think of when you say Jesse James? And this is wrong. I already feel it wrong in my heart and soul.
Ooh, I'm trying to guess who you're going to say.
Not back in the gold rush era or whenever. I mean, I've heard of Jesse James, but I think of Sandra Bullock's ex-husband.
Oh.
Was that not Jesse James?
Oh my God, it might be.
That's all I can think of, and I can picture him.
I can picture him too in my head right now. I can totally picture him.
And for some reason, I feel that he was like
a big wrestler-y
dude.
like
blonde kind of
biker.
Dude. Yeah.
Blonde.
Have a sense that he like screwed her over in one way or another.
Why do we know that?
I don't know.
Okay, but who's the actual famous American outlaw Jesse James? Could you give me any information about him?
He's a famous American outlaw who was alive and about during the gold rush era.
Good job. That was insightful. Very insightful. I don't have anything to tell you about
then you probably shouldn't ask that question.
I know. He was apparently a bank and train robber, I think, and that's about all I know. So yeah, let's add that to the lookup list because I don't know much more than that. I think you'll like this one. Bailey is home to the world's first ever geodesic dome hotel.
What is that made out of? Geodes?
I'm going to tell you. I did look. So I'm proud of myself because a few of these, I just find these facts and I just like plop them into my outline and that's it. A few of these, I was like, she's going to ask this and I'm going to find out ahead of time.
Geodesic Hotel. Say that again.
Geodesic Dome Hotel. And so in Bailey, it's the world's first ever and it's called the Indian Springs Resort. So a geodesic dome is a hemispherical thin shell structure based on a geodesic polyhedron. The triangular elements of the dome are structurally rigid and distribute the structural stress throughout the structure, making geodesic domes able to withstand very heavy loads for their size. It basically is like it's a dome.
Yeah, that's geometric, has the like whatever where I've seen on Airbnb and all the shit that I want to stay in my dreams and hopes.
Yes.
Now, why does it have to bear a heavy load?
They promote more efficient, geodesic domes promote more efficient air circulation and keep temperatures even throughout the structure. And so they're more energy efficient and because of their unique shape. I don't know why it's important that they can withstand heavy loads, but they can.
Well, and also, and this, I get this is a real like hotel place. So when I said I can picture it based on these Airbnb places I've looked at and wished on, those ones, I think I'm picturing the structure correctly. But the ones I'm thinking of are like stargazer in the middle of the desert. So they're like clear glass or whatever.
Sure.
But, oh, wow. That's, guys,
Like, I mean,
exactly.
don't.
That's exactly what I'm picturing.
And we'll post this. I know I keep saying that and I keep not posting, but I'm getting on it, guys. I'm getting on it.
Well, and even if you don't, that is like a huge star on my lookup list, which it already has taken up like half the page.
Okay, well, more on that on the lookup list, but that's kind of cool. The world's first ever. I mean, that's impressive. Let's move on to, well, we talked about festivals for the last town, and so I thought I'd include this one. The town has an annual summer festival called Bailey Day, which features live music, food vendors, and a parade. I looked it up and I looked at pictures, and it looks super fun. It's got a real kind of like cowboyish vibe.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering, I guess, maybe in my back brain until you said it. Like, because I picture Colorado being kind of all kinds of different vibes, like kind of hippie vibe in some areas, cowboy, westerny in some areas, like high deserty, snow sports, and all of that can
I think it's
commingle.
All of those things.
But so it's 45 miles southwest.
Minutes.
Oh, minutes. Okay.
Southwest of Denver. So Bailey Festival, they transform the entire town into the Old West for an entire weekend.
So kind of like where we live.
Yeah, exactly.
The Old West.
Yeah. Bailey was once a popular stop on the Denver, South Park, and Pacific Railroad, which was later dismantled and turned into a hiking and biking trail. So, side note here while we talk about this railroad thing. I was talking to Mark the other day about, it's been stressful lately. Let's like take a day or a night or a weekend or go somewhere. And we both said we've always wanted to do like a train ride, like get like a overnight car on a train and like take like a scenic old railroady thing.
You can do that you can hop on a train here in Tucson and probably go somewhere cool.
I looked into it, but it's really not cheap.
Yeah, no.
It's kind of expensive, honestly.
I think do you think it's because more people do it for travel and leisure than necessity these days? Like they take it. Yeah. So it's not like.
No, it's not, it's definitely, I mean, maybe some people are doing it to like get from A to B, but I think more than anything, like the way it's advertised is like, get this cool little car and then you can go to the dining car and you can look out at these beautiful mountains while you eat. And there's like a set menu and like, it's a whole thing. It's not cheap, but I've always wanted to do that. I think there's something like very intriguing about that to me. And this, I don't know if that's what this railroad was, but it was a 3-foot narrow gauge railroad that operated in Colorado in the late 19th century. It opened up the first rail routes to a large section of central Colorado mining district in the decades of the mineral boom.
You know what train I really want to take? The Trans-Siberian through the former USSR.
Of course you do.
I know. We'll talk about that on the lookup list.
Yeah, write that down. That would be an interesting
It's already down.
Yeah. Okay, so now I have so those were Bailey facts. Again, Bailey's a kind of small town, so generic, just kind of the light facts on Bailey. But now I have we haven't done a Colorado one, so I thought we should have some Colorado facts. How do you say Colorado?
Colorado.
Okay.
I mean, how else do we say it?
I don't know. Some people say, I feel like I hear
Colorado?
No. I feel like I hear people say like Colorado.
Well, they're probably from Colorado. Sorry, Colorado. I'm just kidding. Love hippies and weirdos, but
I
don't know.
I've heard people say that. Colorado.
Maybe if we smoke some marijuana,
right?
Then we might say it in different ways. Colorado.
That's true. Then I also wouldn't be able to like actually do this episode.
Who knows?
Maybe I'd do it better.
Maybe we would.
That's true. Maybe we'll try that sometime.
Yeah.
So Colorado is home to the highest suspension bridge in the world, the Royal Gorge Bridge. It's suspended 956 feet above the Arkansas River and spans a quarter of a mile. It was completed in 1929 and has been a popular tourist attraction ever since. 956 feet doesn't sound super, super tall in my mind. I'm really bad at, this is probably going to piss off, what's his name? Sean Thompson, our listener who doesn't like that we don't know directions, which
this is like an adjacent to that, but
it's adjacent, yeah. I'm bad at picturing distances. Like if you told me 10 feet, okay, I can picture that. If you told me 50 feet, ooh, my brain doesn't go that far.
Well, and then 900, your brain definitely doesn't.
Definitely doesn't.
You know, this is odd and strange, but we used to go to Great America in Chicago or outside of Chicago as a teen, right?
Yes.
And that drop.
The eagle?
No, not the main old wooden one, but the one where
The wooden one, yeah.
where you'd go and you up, and then it would just drop.
Oh, I don't think I ever did that one.
Oh, well, I have a faint memory that it was 300 and something feet up, and
it was very high.
Seemed fucking high.
Okay, so three times that.
So when you say that,
it's very high. I guess we need a picture of this,
Yep.
the Royal Gorge Bridge.
I got it.
Also, apparently there's a lot of tall things in Colorado because the tallest sand dunes in North America are located in Colorado, which is surprising to me because I thought that most of the sand dunes were in Michigan. But apparently...
Because you've been there?
Yeah, because I'd been there when I was younger. But the Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve has dunes that can reach up to 750 feet in height.
Holy shit, that's almost as high as the
bridge.
Gorge Bridge.
Yeah. The sand comes from nearby Sangre de Cristo Mountains and is carried by the wind to create the dunes. Colorado has a lot of, all of my facts are like them being the biggest or the tallest or the best of things. So the next one is the world's largest natural hot springs pool is located in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. The pool is over 2 blocks long.
Wow.
Which feels like a weird measurement, though.
Also, how do they measure a block?
Right. 2 blocks long and contains over 1 million gallons of hot mineral water. The water is heated naturally and contains over 15 minerals, making it a popular destination for relaxation and therapy.
I like a natural spring. I've never been to Colorado.
Well, add it to the list.
Yeah, now
we're going to go on like a Death by Southwest tour to all of these places. Okay, Colorado has the highest mean elevation of any state in the United States with an average elevation of 6,800 feet. So mean just takes me back to teaching because I was a teacher for a while and I taught this when I was a teacher. Mean, median, and mode. Do you remember learning about that in like elementary school?
Yes, I'm surprised. I mean, I understand you were a teacher more recently than you were in elementary school, but I was thinking it takes you back to teaching. Doesn't it just take you back to like when you learned it? Mean, you take them all together, add them up, and divide it by the number.
Right.
Median is the most middle
one.
And mode is the most common occurring?
Perhaps. I just said that I taught
I know,
that,
it's
so
okay.
It's embarrassing, but
who cares?
So this means that many of the state's cities and towns are located at high elevations, which can have an impact on the climate and the way that people live their daily lives. Because we know that when you go to high elevations and you drink alcohol, what happens?
That's where you were going first. Well, you get more drunk.
Right. Where were you going?
Just that it's harder to breathe until you acclimate. You know, it's just harder to breathe, period. Or if you exert yourself physically, it will have more of an impact. Maybe it makes you more tired or, more tired quicker.
Right.
I don't know if it makes you more
to the drinking.
Yeah, well, that's true.
It does make you more drunk. We both lived in Flagstaff. You know that, like, if
I don't know if I noticed. I was 18 or 17 when I moved there. Anytime I drank when I was 17, 18, I'd get tipsy, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. Okay. I mean, that's it. I do have some Denver facts. This doesn't take place in Denver, so I feel like I should maybe save these for when we have one in Denver.
Okay. I do have a question. I'd like to know, like, the general mean temperature or, like, the typical
climate.
High, the typical low of Bailey, which is 45 minutes southwest of Denver.
Okay. So Bailey, Colorado in March, which is right now, the high is generally about 47 degrees. So chilly. And the low is 17.
Chilly.
Whoa. June, the high is 74 and the low is 38.
Oh, because it's at 7,000 plus feet.
Yeah, it's high up there. It's a mountain town.
That makes sense. Wow. So midsummer, it's mild. It's very mild.
Very mild. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to jump into our murder story today after that lovely sense of place with Bailey, Colorado. Usually I like to ask you, I like to do that like trivia, like ask you questions.
Yeah, you weren't very trivia.
Trivia? No, I was not today. So sorry.
That's fine.
But I figured you don't know anything about Colorado. It would
I
be
know
hard.
nothing.
Yeah, it would have been hard to do trivia. So it
I
was
like
more
to
just
guess.
a fact sharing. So we're going to get into today's murder story, which involves the brutal murder of Maggie Long, a 17-year-old high school student who was murdered in 2017 in Bailey, Colorado. So as we always do before we kind of get into this crime, we're going to get to know Maggie a little bit. So Maggie was born on December 17th, 1999. She died on December 1st, 2017. December
My birthday.
1st, that's what I was just going to say. December 1st is Jenna's birthday. Maggie's parents were Rob and Peggy Long. They were born, I found a couple different things, but they were born either in a refugee camp in North Vietnam is what I found most of. They were Chinese, Vietnamese. They fled to the United States during the Vietnam War.
Before they had Maggie.
Yes. And Maggie had 3 siblings. She had 2 sisters, Connie and Lynna. They were both older. And then a younger brother, Derek. Her parents owned... So initially I found that they owned 2 very popular Asian restaurants in Bailey. One was called Aspen Peak Cellars, which was a winery and a bistro. And the other was called Happy Walk, which was a Chinese restaurant. And then I also found a couple other sources that said they owned 4 restaurants. So, they owned some restaurants that did very well. Apparently.
They were in the restaurant biz.
They were in the restaurant business.
Did they do well?
They did do well. They were quite wealthy. Apparently, they also invested in real estate. They were doing well financially.
Yeah. Nice. Not that nice when you know what happened to their child, but nice for now.
Yeah. And this is kind of a side story, but it was so fascinating to me that I had never heard this that I have to include it because it involves not Maggie, who's our victim today, but her older sister, Lynna.
Also, I think we need to say before this, like
graphic.
Trigger warning graphic for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So Lynna, Maggie, Connie, and Derek, all of them either did or would eventually go to Platte Canyon High School in Bailey, Colorado. And when I was researching this, I came across something where Lynna, Maggie's older sister, was the victim in a hostage school shooter situation where a shooter entered the school, this Platte Canyon High School, and held the female students hostage and sexually assaulted them. And I read that in one of the articles or something when I was researching, and I was like, what? No way. Like, I would have heard about this. And sure enough, when I dug a bit deeper, I've never heard of this. And it is, I'm going to tell you about it because it is shocking to me. So, on September 27th, 2006, a 53-year-old man named Dwayne Roger Morrison took 7 female students hostage and sexually assaulted them at the Platte Canyon High School. So at 11:40 a.m., he entered the school carrying a Smith & Wesson Glock 22 pistol and a Smith & Wesson .357 caliber revolver and a backpack which he claimed contained 3 pounds of C4. And a search of the backpack later recovered duct tape, handcuffs, knives, a stun gun, rope, scissors, massage oil, sex toys, and numerous rounds of ammunition, but no explosives like he claimed. So he entered a classroom on the 2nd floor, room 206, where teacher Sandra Smith taught honors English. When Smith asked him, "What are you doing in my classroom?" he pulled out his handgun and ordered her and all of the male students and a few female students to leave. He ordered the remaining female students to line up against the chalkboard at the front of the class. One male student attempted to fight back against this, and when he did so, Morrison fired a single round past all of the lined up students, like right at eye level, to scare them.
Oh, he didn't kill the guy, the kid.
It hit the wall, and so then those students, after that, they left. They did what he said. And
I bet they did.
Yeah. And 7 girls were remaining in the classroom with him that were lined up against the front board. He later released one student at approximately 12:15, and that was before law enforcement arrived at the scene. Over the next several hours, 4 of the girls held hostage were released one at a time from the room and were escorted out by the SWAT team.
What happened before they were released?
So Lena Long, that's Maggie's sister, who was a 15-year-old sophomore at the time and one of the 7 hostages, stated that Morrison lined the girls up facing the chalkboard and then sexually assaulted all of them. She stated that she knew that the other hostages were being sexually assaulted and molested because of the rustling of clothes and elastic being snapped and zippers being opened and closed.
This is a lot. I didn't know about this.
Yeah. During the sexual assaults, Morrison reportedly held his gun to the hostages' heads and threatened to kill them if they did not cooperate. According to the first hostage that was released, Morrison would systematically take individual hostages from the blackboard and take them further into the interior of the classroom before sexually assaulting them and then letting them go. Eventually, police broke open the classroom's door with explosives. Morrison opened fire with a semi-automatic pistol before shooting one of the hostages, Emily Keyes, in the head and killing her. The other remaining hostages escaped unharmed outside of trauma and sexual assault, of course. And the paramedics confirmed that Morrison committed suicide shortly before the police were able to enter the classroom.
I want to say things, but I'm not gonna.
Shocking, right? I mean, I
Well,
never
all
heard
of that.
about this.
Yes, that's all awful and shocking. And also,
Unbelievable.
part of me wants to say, good, I hope he killed himself dead. And part of me wants to say, I wish he rot in hell.
Yeah. I thought it was important to include that because it blew my mind that I had never heard of it. But also, I mean, if we're going to silver lining it.
Are we?
Well, we're going to try.
Oh, you're going to try.
Lena, she suffered trauma and just a horrifying experience that I can't understand, but she survived.
Yes, yeah. No, she's alive.
She's alive.
Right.
So
that is good. Well, let's hope this gets more cheerful.
it's probably not going to.
No, I'm kidding.
But, okay, so that was a little offshoot just about Lena, Maggie's older sister, but we are focused on Maggie today. And Maggie was a senior in high school at the time of her death. She was 17 years old. She apparently did not have a boyfriend at the time of her death,
Or a girlfriend.
Thank you. So she was apparently a straight A student. You could often find her with her head down studying at one of her parents' restaurants. Her older sister Connie said she was a very involved student. She had so many interests and just loved trying new things and being part of as much of life as she could. According to interviews with her family and friends, Maggie was described as kind, creative, and intelligent. She was well-liked, altruistic, genuine, ambitious, and majestic, which was one of her favorite words.
Love that word. Yeah.
You're going to like her. Yeah, I really liked her after learning about her. Friends say that she was very active in a bunch of different things. She was super active on the school speech team. And her biggest passion, though, was the theater. She loved the theater. She loved acting and singing. She was heavily involved in her school plays. And she even worked at a local theater called the Venue Theater. And Nelson Conway, who is the managing director of the Venue Theater, described Maggie as a truly sweet and giving person who was always highly respectful and kind. She was always happy and enthusiastic to be at the theater, whether it was her school's theater or this community theater.
Cool.
She was excited to learn and perfect her singing and acting, which was kind of a contrast to her apparently her kind of shy and tentative nature. And this is what really struck me about Maggie. Maggie was she was very passionate about helping those less fortunate than her. So her family was pretty well off. They lived in a very beautiful, large home on several acres of kind of a ranch, kind of. Mm-hmm. But she really cared about helping people that that didn't have as much as she did. So every year on her birthday, instead of celebrating with friends or hanging out and having a party, she would make hundreds of sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and go pass them out to the homeless people on the streets of Denver every year on her birthday. And that was like her yearly tradition.
I think that's great.
So after her death, her friends continued her tradition of making these peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and handing them out to the homeless in her memory every year, which I thought was just, I mean, for a 17-year-old, that's pretty, most people, and this
I'd say most people.
I was going to say most people, and sounds shitty, but most people are kind of selfish and self-involved. We all are.
I'm one of them.
Me too. Especially teenagers. And this young girl, 17 years old, is like, no, I don't want to party with my friends. I'm gonna hand out food to the homeless. I mean, I think that's a pretty amazing thing.
Also, I just realized she died right before her 18th birthday.
She did.
Yeah.
So she would have graduated from high school that year.
She died before that.
Yeah.
Though. Yeah. She would have graduated June 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that graduation year, she was dead, and her sister accepted her high school diploma on her behalf. The Venue Theater dedicated a scholarship in her name called the Maggie Long Award, awarded apparently to those who, quote, embody Maggie's beautiful spirit.
Majestic spirit.
Majestic, that's right. They also created a seat plaque bearing her name on the one seat that she always loved to sit in and eat and socialize when she was at the theater. In addition to her creative pursuits, Maggie was also an athlete, and her memory remains alive at her high school. Her softball jersey with the number 30 sits in a frame in the office of Principal Mike Schmidt, who is in the process of deciding was in the process of deciding where to place it permanently. Like she was a big deal. Like the school was small. Look, the town had 8,000 people. So I think her high school had 300 people, period. So somebody who's actively passing out food to the homeless and acting in plays, and a wealthy, prominent family who owned several businesses in town. Like she was known around town. She was a community member that people knew of.
She also seemed to me, all I've heard is what all the listeners have heard, so I don't know anything else. Exactly what you said, and also someone who maybe doesn't like thrive on the limelight or anything. She's like more demure, or that's the wrong word. That's like a weird word. In wanted to be who she was, but also a bit in the background.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's 100% correct.
I like that.
So after her death, her family and friends established the Maggie Long Foundation to honor her memory and support causes that she was passionate about, such as music and animals. The foundation also provides scholarships for students pursuing careers in music. I did find a few things, and I couldn't confirm them completely, so I wasn't going to include them, but apparently she loved animals. I think her family had horses on their property. So that's Maggie. That's the overview of Maggie.
I like Maggie.
I do too.
Don't miss what happens next in today's episode. We'll be right back after a short message from our sponsors.
On Friday, December 1st, 2017, Maggie was very excited to attend a concert that night at Platte Valley High School. She'd helped to organize this concert, and she was in charge of the VIP section. Around 3 o'clock that afternoon, when they were getting ready for this concert, she realized she had made some cookies and personally baked some baked goods
for the cast,
for the VIP
for the VIP.
section.
Okay.
Yeah. And she realized she had forgotten it at home, and so she told her friends, like, I'm going to run home. I'm going to grab these cookies and baked goods and a little bit more water, and I'll be back soon. Her house is about 20 minutes from the school. So she left around 3:30 p.m. and she, people expected her to be back around 4:30 or 5 at the latest. But Maggie never made it back to the concert. Even though it was unusual for her to not be there, especially because she was one of the people who helped organize this, the concert had to go on, and it did. It went on without her. But her friends, fellow students, teachers were kind of all like, where'd she go? Why isn't she back? I wonder what happened.
Let me ask you a question. What would you be saying? Like, okay, so it's not typical. She seems very responsible and like on point.
Yeah.
she looked someone in the eye, it sounds like, and said, I'll be back in an hour to an hour and a half, essentially. Right. I got to get these cookies. And then she didn't come back. So if you had to guess, I know you know what happened. I don't, but I know it didn't turn out well. What would your best guess be? Like, what would you be saying to your peer, or to if you're a teacher and saying it to your colleague about, well, she was supposed to come back in an hour and a half. What would you be saying?
I don't know. I would think like maybe she got home and like something happened with her sister or parents, or, you know, she had an argument with somebody, or maybe she got a flat tire.
That's what I was thinking. Flat tire, car situation.
They are like, it's a very mountainy town. Her house, I'll have to show you, but like I found a Google map. Well, first of all, of her, what her house looks like. It's gorgeous. And then also how far back it is. I just showed Jenna like how the house was kind of out there it's very rural. It's very rural.
It's rural, period. And then off the quote unquote main rural road, it looks about maybe a fourth of a mile off that main rural road. Yes. That's a hard word to say, rural.
Rural.
Which also doesn't have a lot around it.
Right. Oh. Where were we? She never made it back to the concert. Like I said, it was, it was unusual, but the concert went on and people were asking about her. And so her sister Connie had been calling Maggie because she was going to go to the concert, and she got voicemail, and she's like, that's weird. I don't know why she's not answering, but like, I'll just go to the high school and I'll find Maggie there. So Connie said, I waited in the auditorium and just kept looking at the door to see if Maggie was going to come through. And then when the opening band started, I felt like I had a gut feeling that something was wrong. And so I thought, I just need to drive home. So Connie said she left the auditorium, this is Maggie's sister, and drove. She said, I drove over to the house, and when I got closer, my gut feeling just kept getting worse and worse. And I drove up as close as I could get to our house, and then I just saw chaos. So around 7 p.m. that night, before Connie drove there.
Okay. She was going at the auditorium of the high school.
I'm flashing back a little bit.
Gotcha.
So around 7 p.m. that night, deputies with the Park County Sheriff's Office were called to 3763 County Road 43 after a 911 call came in reporting a possible break-in. Supposedly, this call came from a tenant that was living in the attic of the Long family home.
Any relation to them that you know of?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
There's very little information about this tenant, surprisingly. But he or she, I actually don't even know, called 911 and claimed that there were people downstairs in the home arguing, throwing things, and attempting to set the house on fire. The caller said, I think there are 3 men, but I can only be certain that there's at least one strange man on the property.
Like a strange man that this person didn't recognize the voice or seemed out of place.
Right.
Okay.
The caller said that the people in the home were violent, smashing things, burning things, and he didn't feel safe leaving his attic. Police and fire department arrived at the home about 12 minutes later. So when authorities arrived at the home, they found the house was already engulfed in flames. The alleged intruders were long gone. A little after 8 p.m., so about an hour later, the fire department was finally able to fully extinguish the fire at Maggie's home, at which point they asked dispatch to send the Colorado Bureau of Investigations out to the scene, since they had found numerous different places where the fire had started, which indicates arson.
Yet, not yet, of course, because everything's been burned and they haven't sorted through things, but they have an inkling, or a strong inkling, it's arson, and also maybe no thoughts yet on what the catalyst of the arson was, a cigarette, a firecracker, a whatever. Mm-hmm. And now Connie is the sister that went to the concert and then at some point was coming back.
Right. And so although there was significant damage to the home, it didn't by any means burn to the ground. Like, this wasn't like a engulfing the whole house, burning it to the ground type fire. There were small fires throughout the house that burned significant areas of the house. Rooms,
portions of rooms,
things. Right. But
it was a huge house. It was a huge house,
and it was still standing by the time they put it out. So even though there was significant damage, a spokesperson at the time said that it's not clear if anyone was inside at the time of the fire. And while police were investigating the fire as arson, they really weren't saying anything else at this point. They wouldn't say anything else publicly.
Also, if I was Connie coming upon this, and I'm not saying she was, I don't know, I'll find out. But like it sounds like the only one in the family that was kind of concerned via their
She had
gut,
a bad feeling.
Yeah, was Connie. And so if she had come upon this and they could say, oh, we're not sure if anyone was in the home, maybe her mind went to, shit, Maggie was in the home.
I'm so glad you said that, because something that I cut out of this, podcast plan, truthfully, is that I found several sources that said when everyone realized, and like Connie realized and their mom realized and everyone realized Maggie had left but never come back, they reported her missing before or around the same time, but no one was kind of connecting the dots to the 911 being called to their home. But I found other accounts that said that like they were just concerned and they were in their minds like she's missing, but there was no official missing persons report. So I don't actually know. They may have reported her missing very quickly because it was weird that she didn't come back to her own event that she was planning, or they just thought, well, where is she? She's missing.
Right. It's also weird that happened somewhat, I'm not saying right at the same time, but somewhat concurrently to the house fires.
She went missing around, between 3:30 and 4:30, and this
was like a couple hours later.
Yeah. So at 8:50 p.m. that night on December 1st, police informed dispatch that there would be an arson investigation, and a victim's assistant was sent to the scene because the family was there at this point. And a victim's assistant is usually called to engage family members and others after a traumatic incident. So the next morning, around 10 a.m. on Saturday, December 2nd, one of the Park County coroner's deputies was cleared to come to the house.
What does that mean, cleared to come to the house?
Asked to come to the house. Generally, a coroner is only called to the scene if you find a body.
Which seems to indicate, based on what you just said, I have no idea.
Yeah, why would you call a coroner if you don't have a body?
I don't know.
But nobody knew. There was nothing going public. We know what that indicates, but there's nothing officially being said.
Got it.
And really the only lead was reported by some reports said a local resident, others said the tenant. I'm guessing it's the tenant because this house is pushed far back. And so the only real lead was that there were some vehicles observed at the scene. Initially, it was an older model tan van that was driving out of their ranch. And then later it came out that it was more than one vehicle, possibly a Chevy Astro van and a Ford pickup. So here's where things get a little bit weird. The fact that the coroner was called out was a direct contradiction to what police soon released publicly. The Park County Undersheriff David Wallers, in a statement released on Saturday, December 2nd, said, "On-scene investigation is wrapped up. Cause and origin of the fire is inconclusive. Still no sign of Maggie and no body at the fire scene."
But let's still have a coroner come out.
The coroner had already come out, and he was releasing this after the coroner came out.
Oh, so let him know.
This was very weird. Like, why did you have a coroner come out, but then you're telling us there's no body at the scene? That's odd. That's
Do you have a thought on that? Do you have a thought on that? I do.
Somebody's lying.
Oh, I thought someone was just like, well, that could be obviously a million things could be, but my first thought was like someone jumped the gun. Oh, like they jumped the gun as in, okay, your sister or your daughter or whomever, you haven't seen her in a few hours and that seems unlike her. Mm. And also then here we go with your house being on fire in various areas. So maybe someone jumped the gun and said, it's probably what's happened to her. You can't speak to this because you know what happened, so.
I will speak to it in the sense of that a coroner is only called when there is a body.
When they've found.
It's not like maybe there's a body. Come check around.
Well, then someone fucked up or someone's lying and there has been a baddie found.
Right.
There's been a body found.
Exactly. So on December 2nd, that was Saturday, the next day, he said there's no body. This was a public statement. On December 3rd, the sheriff's office posted a tweet saying, "We are sorry we are unable to reveal more information. This is an arson investigation. We don't believe there is a risk to the public. We continue to ask for prayers for the Long family." So at this point, they're still publicly saying, like, no body. This is an arson investigation separate from Maggie going missing. All separate, not connected. So beyond these contradicting statements, on the night of December 1st, when Maggie was missing, her sister, I don't know which one, Lynna or Connie, posted on Facebook asking for help. "Please help us find Maggie. My sister left the school this night. She never came back. We don't know where she is. Please help us." And tons of people in the community commented and were voicing their concern, and tons of people were volunteering, saying, "We want to start a search party. Let's start a search party for Maggie." So they went to the police, and the police said, "No, we're not going to do a search party. It's not necessary because we're working to see if there's a connection between the disappearance and the home fire, the arson fire." And so I that like piqued my interest. I felt like you in this moment, because I was like, well, like, do you need a police approval to do a search party? And apparently to do an official search party, you do.
You need a search warrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And police will usually only conduct a search if they believe your loved one's disappearance is suspicious. And the state emergency service can only conduct official searches for missing persons with the approval from police. So yes, of course, her friends and family could have like gone out with flashlights and like looked around for her. So it just gets weirder and weirder from here.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. So on Monday, December 4th, the 11th Judicial District issued a gag order to all agencies to not release any information to the public or media about Maggie's disappearance or the fire or anything. A gag order, like no one can speak. Family, police, no one's allowed to say anything. And initially, that's all that I could find. And I like went a little bit deeper, and I was like, what? Like, why? What?
Also, do they have that much to speak on? Haven't we spoken, like, what's obvious?
Sure. I mean, I guess they don't, but like, then what's the point of a gag order? That seems suspicious. So apparently, the purpose of this gag order was just because they were afraid that a bunch of misinformation and people talking, a small town, it would get out. And there was apparently certain things about the crime scene that only the perpetrator, the potential suspects would have known about. And they wanted to make sure that the public didn't know that, so that they could really zero in on a suspect. But then the gag order was rescinded within a few days. And I'm unclear on why. But once it was, a press release was issued by Sheriff Fred Wegener on December 7th. In that press release, he said that Maggie's body was in fact found in the house by the firefighters. Yeah. The press release also said that a task force was being put together of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies to bring any individuals involved in Maggie's death to justice. So investigators also said that the scene showed that a physical altercation took place between Maggie and her assailants before the fire was started. That's basically all they released at that time on December 7th. So we're about 6 days after she's gone missing. At that point, a Be on the Lookout, so a BOLO, was broadcast at 4:40 p.m. on the 7th to the Denver Police Department and numerous TV stations in Denver. And the BOLO said, "This BOLO is going to be for a late model 90s to 2000 light-colored minivan, possibly driven by a white male in his 20s. Homicide occurred during an arson, and the suspect driver may have some flash burns as well as gasoline taken from the house, a large case, AK-47, 2,000 rounds of ammo, a 7.62 and a 9mm Beretta. Please be advised the subject is considered armed and extremely dangerous." Almost immediately after this BOLO went out, the Park County Undersheriff said, "Uh-oh, this was a mistake. We issued a bolo, but it was not for public consumption. It was supposed to go out just through a confidential law enforcement source. And I can't confirm or deny what the media is reporting, but this was not supposed to go out, and it's been disruptive to our investigation. It's caused problems, and now we have to reconvene the task force and decide how information for a public clarification will be crafted.
You cannot go back from that. I don't know why. Like, you know more than me, obviously, why this wasn't for public consumption. I can only guess. Like, maybe they don't want to leak that because then people like me come up with questions and theories and call in.
Right.
And also, the light-colored minivan, that's tickling my brain. Isn't that what the motherfucker drove that assaulted those high school girls?
Oh, wow. Amazing. I don't know. I'm going to go back and look right now. Hold on. He drove a Jeep.
Okay.
Yeah.
He
drove a Jeep.
Well, then I have no idea, which makes sense.
What do you think at this point?
Well, I thought it was the guy that did that shitty, awful, terrible high school shit. I don't know why it stuck in my mind. I thought he had a whatever van. I don't know. You have it like, okay, earlier my mind goes back to she didn't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You said that, and it's like, okay, well, why'd you say that? If she did, I'd think say it. So I think it's something there. Someone who had an attraction, love feeling for her. I don't know. But that was a weird thing you said. Also, it's maybe, now, I was going to say maybe, you give me enough clear air and I'll come up with other theories. Maybe her parents were getting older and someone knew that they had equitable restaurants and like the daughters were going to be the next takeover. Yeah, they would have killed all the daughters and sons. So, no, I don't know.
Okay.
What is it? Tell me. I need to know.
Can't tell you yet.
You're going to tell me this evening.
Yes. So on December 17th, we're going to flash forward about a week and a half now. Maggie's birthday, she would have been 18, 2.5 weeks after her death. A celebration of her life was held at her high school. And by then, police had cleared multiple suspects, including the tenant who lived on the property. So he was not a suspect. And for those kind of 2.5 weeks between then, like there was very little. The bolo was an accident, and beyond that, there was very little information that law enforcement released. People were frustrated because they were like, "What?" So there was a girl who was missing for several days and then found dead in a home fire that was arson with also a burglary because things were burglarized. I haven't gotten there yet, but I will. And police were really not releasing a ton of information until right around this time, around her birthday, about a week to 2 weeks later. Law enforcement finally kind of like seemed to jump on board and be like, okay, yeah, now we're going to get into this. So they reached out to the public through media and said they wanted to know if anyone had seen anything. They set up a tip line. They added a cash reward for any information. And they began questioning residents in the town. Pretty much everyone. I mean, there's only about 8,000 to 9,000 people living in the town. So they were going door to door, taking DNA samples from men 15 and older in the town. Because the tenant had said that he could confirm that at least one unknown man was on the property.
Oh.
He believed he heard multiple voices in the house when he called 911.
That's right. And one,
but he could only for sure
one seemed like
one.
They were ready to burn down the house. Right. One was unknown, unfamiliar.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they were taking DNA samples from young to middle-aged men around town.
Yeah, those who were willing, yes. So they also took DNA samples from family members and people who were close with the Long family just to be able to rule them out, because they took DNA also from the scene, from Maggie's body, from whatever they could get. Obviously, there was a lot of fire, so the DNA was compromised, but whatever DNA they could get. And they said that the Park County Undersheriff confirmed and clarified that while they were taking DNA, it wasn't random, it was specific. So at this point, we're in late December. The police called in the FBI and the CBI, which is the Central Bureau of Investigations. and they set up roadblocks at the gates of the Long family ranch, and they stopped every resident going down that main road, handed out flyers showing potential, pictures of Maggie and the likenesses of the vehicles that may have been used in the crime, and also a list of the items that were stolen.
What was stolen?
Yeah, items that were stolen were jade figurines, a green safe, a 9mm pistol, an AK-47 style rifle, and 2,000 rounds of ammo.
Wow. That's, I imagine they had a lot of stuff in that house. Like, those are
Wealthy
valuable things. And also, they had other things.
Of course they did. But I mean, that's concerning. An AK-47 and 2,000 rounds of ammo. So police had set up these roadblocks and passing out flyers and everything. And just, we're a couple weeks into the investigation and they were just empty-handed. Nothing. No suspects, no nothing. But they were kind of dancing around a couple of theories. 3 in particular. So one of the very, very first theories was that this was a robbery gone wrong. So they believed there were 3 men involved. And I don't know how they got, the tenant said, I heard voices and multiple people, but he could only confirm 100% he saw one man. But there were at least 2 cars there. And so police somehow settled on that there were 3 men involved, maybe a 4th suspect. And they broke into the house, they ransacked it, they stole all this stuff, and they believe that Maggie interrupted them. She came home to pick up her baked goods for her concert and interrupted this robbery, and they then attacked her and set fire to the house and burned her alive. You don't want to miss what happens next in today's murder story, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a short message from our sponsors. There was nothing necessarily that could confirm or deny this theory. It was a possible theory. The next theory was a personal grudge. They looked into the possibility that the murderer or murderers had a grudge against Maggie or her family, because they were prominent people in the town. And this theory was fueled in part by the fact that the suspects or perpetrators appeared to have a high level of knowledge about the family's home and security measures. Like, this was a wealthy home. They seemed to know specific things to take: the valuable guns, the safe.
Like, maybe they've been around or been invited in the home.
Exactly.
Okay.
Again, nothing concrete to confirm or deny this theory.
Is there gonna be anything concrete?
Well, I can't get there yet. So the third theory was gang involvement. At one point during the investigation, investigators explored the possibility that the murder was connected to gang activity, but they ultimately found no real evidence to support this. It was just something they were looking into. And so all of these were possible theories that came about initially when looking into this, but none really amounted to much. So the investigation into Maggie's murder proved to be a complex and lengthy process. So we are going to go forward to about a year into her investigation. We are at the 1-year anniversary now of her death. And the police and investigators were seemingly no further along in solving this brutal murder. On the 1-year anniversary, law enforcement decided to set up another roadblock kind of at the end of her driveway, which was, T-headed with a main road. They were passing out flyers again. They had at this point spoken to the tenant, I guess, and potential other witnesses who were never named, who maybe saw getaway vehicles with people driving them. And so they had 3 sketches of 3 different men who may be involved. This was their best leads at this point, are these witness statements of people who they think they saw around at the house around this time. It was all very kind of loose, though. But the police were publicly saying that they believe there were 3 suspects with 3 vehicles that purposely set fire to the house with Maggie in it. At this point, a year later, a website was designated for tips as well as supplying information to the public, and they increased the cash reward to, I believe, $75,000. But still, nothing. And I did find this Reddit post that I thought, this is just somebody's opinion, so it can't be taken as fact, but I think it's super interesting. This person said, the sad thing is that when the tenant called the police, the vehicles of the intruders were still at the residence. The police or fire department had to have passed them as they approached the house. Unbeknownst to law enforcement, they allowed the killers to get away. Because this ranch was set back so far onto many acres of land and secluded from the main road, there's only one way in and one way out. So as the police and fire department was coming in, inevitably these people were driving out. And no one ever stopped them because they didn't know what was happening at the house yet. They had no idea that it was an intruder, arson. They got a 911 call. I think there's a disturbance in the house. I don't know what's happening.
I don't agree.
Oh, you don't?
If you are, to any extent, I think, and again, I could be wrong, this is why we need Adam, an experienced EMT, police officer, firefighter, even if you have no idea what happened. If there's one way in, one way out, guess what you're doing?
Blocking it off.
Yeah, you're checking. I even know that, and I'm a fucking idiot a lot of times, right? Like, come on. It's not that hard. Even if you don't suspect someone, you can ask questions, stop them, breathalyze that. I don't know what.
True, but let me play devil's advocate. You are a firefighter or a policeman, and you don't actually hear the 911 call. That's the dispatcher. And the dispatcher then comes through to you and says, there's a disturbance at the house on whatever road this is on. Go check it out. And police go, and
Firefighters go,
police go, and they are driving down this very windy, long driveway. Maybe they don't necessarily even know that this is just a driveway. This is just it almost looks, if you look at the map, like a side street. And they don't know that there's anything suspicious about this at the time.
It doesn't matter. Everything to me, and again, I have no idea. This is in my mind. Everything to me is suspicious if you don't know what happened. Like, everything is, not suspicious. Let's ask and question.
But would you
Stop people from driving out of the driveway? I totally would.
Yeah, I guess
I definitely would, unless it's a full blaze and I can't, and that's secondary. If it's secondary, I get that. If it's a full blaze.
But they didn't. Well, according to this Reddit person, again, I was not there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna count on the Reddit person.
Who knows? But they're saying that, like, inevitably there's a very good chance that when authorities were driving into this house, the suspects were driving out and no one stopped them. I find that a little bit hard to believe.
That's not the point of this, though. The point is, what happened to her?
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you that right now. So now we're at almost 2 years post her murder, and nothing has been figured out. But police have pieced together what they believe happened that night, and they have made this public and let the family know. And I will let you know, it is heartbreaking. So they believe that Maggie drove up to her home that night. She left the school, went home to get these goodies and water, and she noticed a white or light colored van and an old beat up Ford truck and a brownish colored older model minivan that were all blocking her garage. I don't know how they knew this, but this is what police are saying. She possibly thought that the cars belonged to the tenant who was living in the attic or people that he had visiting him, and she didn't think much about it. So she entered her home, and they believe that she interrupted a burglary by 3 or 4 young white males. They believe that they then got into a fight with Maggie, overpowered her, and tied her to a bed. After they stole all the figurines, guns, gun safes, weapons, etc., they believe that they poured gasoline over Maggie and set her on fire while she was still alive. They think that there was an altercation between Maggie and her attackers long before the fire started. Like, they fought, they subdued her, they tied her up, and they were in the home for a while, for an hour or two, before purposefully setting fire to her and burning the home. And so according to the coroner's report, she was alive when they set her on fire. And we're 2 years post her murder, where police have this theory. They haven't disclosed exactly how they know that she was maybe tied to a bed or all of these things, but this is what they've come forward with. And this proved to be just way too much for Maggie's family to handle. Connie, Maggie's older sister, said, "My parents' retirement from the restaurant business was kind of in the making, but Maggie's death really catapulted that process. The night that she died, they stopped working and they never returned to their restaurants. It's been a huge change in both of my parents. I don't think they'll ever truly heal from the death of our sister." And soon after that, they sold their home, closed down all of their restaurants, and moved away from Bailey, and now live in Denver, where they apparently have devoted a room to Maggie that contains items salvaged from the fire that remind them of her. Realtor Benjamin Chiang told Denver 7 that what happened to the teen was so traumatic that her parents couldn't bring themselves to ever step foot in the house again after that night. He said, quote, "They worked hard. They worked in the restaurant business all their lives, and they built everything they had from scratch. They're a beautiful family, and it's such a tragedy that this happened." And I think that he's the one who sold their home, and then they moved and have never gone back to Bailey.
This is awful. I still worry about... I understand. This is fucking beyond. I don't have the words. Their daughter, Maggie. I can't. Also,
you're stuck on the high school thing, aren't you?
I am. What about Lena?
Yeah. It's amazing. I feel like we've had a couple of these stories where families have been hit by tragedy after tragedy, and it is just mind-blowing how they come through. The people who remain come through this.
I'm only actually thinking about Lena and Maggie right now.
Yeah.
And good grief.
Awful.
Oh.
So that was...
Well, guys, signing off. See you never on this podcast again. I've got enough trauma in my life. Bye-bye. Just kidding. I can handle it.
No, it is.
Oh, it's terrible.
No, it's absolutely terrible.
So awful.
It is. And okay, so we left off, that was about 2019 that the family moved, and they were like, we can't stay in Bailey, we can't do this. And for the next few years, there was nothing. There were no updates, no suspects, and no real leads. And in 2021, so just 2 years ago, police decided to approach this from a different angle. And on May 18th, 2021, the FBI announced that it would be investigating Maggie's murder from this point forward as a potential hate crime. And a hate crime, because I didn't know exactly, I know what a hate crime is, but I thought it would be useful to have the actual definition. So a hate crime is a criminal offense against a person or property motivated in whole or in part by the individual's bias against a race, religion, disability, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, or gender identity. And Maggie was of Asian descent, and some speculated that her ethnicity could have been a factor in her murder. So police believed that the Long family may have been targeted based on their ethnicity, whereas they initially believed that it was a crime of opportunity. They thought that it may now be a hate crime. So Maggie's sisters, Lena and Connie, said that they didn't notice any discrimination. They were one of the very few Asian families living in this community, but they never noticed any discrimination. They never felt that they were discriminated against. They didn't feel any hatred from community members. They felt they were really liked in this community. They were an important part of the community, and they never felt that way. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. They just were not aware of it. So Lena, Maggie's sister, had said that she was not sure she totally understood this shift in the investigation, but she certainly hoped that it would encourage people to reconsider the interactions that they may have had around the time that her sister was killed, and to take notice of anyone who may have expressed a bias towards Asian Americans at that time.
Okay, so who killed her?
So we're going to flash forward to December 1st, 2022, which is 5 years since Maggie's death and just about 4 months ago from when we're recording this. And to mark this day and try and get a break in the case, the Maggie Long task force was stationed throughout Bailey, Colorado, sharing flyers in an effort to garner tips and new information. Postcards with information about Maggie were being sent out to Bailey residents, and stickers were provided to businesses asking for people to share any information that they may have had. On every flyer that was passed out that day, Maggie's smiling face beamed under the notice of a $75,000 reward offered for information leading to the conviction of any person or people who may have been involved in her murder. And Detective Sergeant Wendy Kipple said she's just looking for a whisper or a hint, any single clue to help her solve one of the most gruesome cases that have ever existed in her career. She said, quote, "Somebody's got to know something. I don't believe that nothing has been said up until this point. Eventually, someone's going to break. Someone's going to speak." And Maggie's sister Connie said, "Even 5 years later, there's no way to get used to this. On this day, it just kind of brings me back to where we were 5 years ago. I think it's one of those shocks that just kind of comes and goes." Maggie had such high aspirations, so many different things she wanted to do with her life, and in so many ways we can continue to live our lives in honor of that. But she deserves justice. She was irreplaceable, an innocent soul with a majestic presence. She brought joy to our family, her friends, and the community, and it will never be forgotten. And those sketches that came about in 2019, if you remember those, nowadays, so about 4 months ago, Detective Kipple said she really doesn't put much credence in those anymore. She said, "We're kind of backing off of those, but we're not backing off of the case." She said that she spends time working on this case every single day, and she says, "We are going to solve it. I'm not giving up on it." And that was as of December, so it was 4 months ago.
This is ending in no found murderer.
Despite extensive media coverage and a $75,000 reward, no one has been apprehended in connection with Maggie's murder. To date, there have been over 237 tips reported, but it is still an open case, and investigators continue to follow leads and pursue new information in the hopes of bringing Maggie's killer to justice.
Good God. Not that it makes it better, but maybe it makes it a bit more tied up.
What, that there's nobody?
No, if you knew what happened.
I was going to say, like, how does that tie it up more? Yeah, no.
Yeah. Like, it's not better. The person's still gone.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever better, but I think having some type of closure.
It's less worse. I think it's less worse.
Yeah. So while Maggie's family and friends continue to wonder if her case will ever be solved, they also continue to hold on to memories of her. A few of her friends and family have even gotten elephant tattoos because apparently Maggie loved to collect little elephant trinkets. And Maggie's sisters continue to hold on to knickknacks that people left for her at the grave and that were recovered from her car and the home. And they keep that now in her room at their home in Denver. I know we've had a couple unsolved cases, but this is one that is very, very active still. And if anyone listening knows anything or has any tips about the murder of Maggie, you obviously can certainly contact us and we will pass that along. But there's also a Maggie Long tip line, and that is 303-239-4243. And police are actively looking for any information or leads that could bring some closure to this family. So absolutely.
Well, sleep tight, guys.
I know. This is a rough one. I'm sorry.
They're all rough. They're all rough. Some are more graphic than others. And also, I choose to listen to true crime, and it's challenging at times.
This was a heartbreaking one.
Good God. Let's all try and take a Benadryl and go to bed.
Yeah.
Because or just talk it out. That's the best we can do. And if you know anything, let us or authorities know. And if you don't, welcome to our life. Good night.
That's true. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. And we will be back in a few days with a lookup list. And say what you say. I think that's important at the end of this one.
Good night and good luck.
And
hug your loved ones.
That is it. Hug your loved ones. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Night, night.
And if you want to see pictures of the victims, the murderers, and any additional related images, head over to our Instagram right now. Our handle across all social media platforms is death, then the letter X, and then Southwest spelled out. So DEATHX SOUTHWEST. Death X Southwest.
Death by Southwest is a Cavalry audio production.
Hosted by Jenna Schneider and Margot Carmichael.
Produced by Margot Carmichael.
Associate produced by Jenna Schneider.
Executive produced by Dana Brunetti and Keegan Rosenberger.
Audio editing and sound design by Revision.